Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to the Infatuasian podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. When I first came up with the name Infatuasian, I kind of had to define what that meant to me. And instead of defining it, I thought it might be easier to think of a person who might be my infatuation. And so you've heard me list people before, that people I might put on my Mount Rushmore of Asians. People like Bruce Lee, of course, and Connie Chung and Martin Yan, Christy Yamaguchi. These are all people that I really, really look up to and admire. But there's one name that stood out. One, for their accomplishments, and two, for their notoriety, I guess is the right word. Because here's the thing. How many people can you say my 15-year-old daughter, my 54-year-old friends, and my 84-year-old mother all know at the same time? There's not that many Asian Americans that you could say that about. Very, very few. And so it's safe to say that Amy Tan is one of the greatest infatuations of mine. She is legend, right? Who hasn't heard of Amy Tan? Who hasn't read Amy Tan? And so when I found out I was going to be able to speak with her, my stomach was doing somersaults. I was super excited, but also super nervous. I actually took half a day off of work so that I could drive home and record this from home. So anyway, it was fantastic. It was kind of a dream come true for me. And so this is the part where I do an introduction, but let's be real, you don't really need to do an introduction. Amy wrote The Joy Luck Club in 1989. Since then, she's published 5 more novels. She's written 2 nonfiction memoirs and musings. Those are great. She co-wrote a screenplay for the Joy Luck Club in 1994. Also written many short stories, of course, and a few children's books. Her latest book, The Backyard Bird Chronicles, came out in 2024. It details several years of Amy's bird watching in her backyard. Yeah, bird watching. It's filled with beautiful original art, like really, really nice art with handwritten observations and stories. It's really, really great. I think I probably read it in 2 days. Even if you're not into birds, like I'm not really that much into birds, even though I am a biology teacher, I really enjoyed it. And I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy it too. So go get yourself a copy of the Backyard Bird Chronicles. Here's kind of a fun behind the scenes thing. We were actually scheduled to speak for about 45 minutes, but we ended up chatting for over an hour and a half. I mean, when the queen wants to talk, I'm here for it. I'm just going to sit back and listen. And it was fantastic. It was so much more than I expected, not just in time, but in her honesty, in her candor, in her humor. I am not faking my laughing in this episode. She cracks me up. She is a funny, funny person. Perhaps the biggest compliment that Amy gave me was that she actually became unaware or forgot that we were doing a podcast interview because it was just like 2 folks chatting, which is always my goal for these interviews. But to have the great Amy Tan say it, oh man, that really made my day. So because it's kind of long, I'm going to break it into 2 episodes. I'll release the second part either later this week or maybe next week. And in part 2, you'll hear one of the most epic infatuation picks I've ever done. Like, Amy really gave it a lot of thought, and the answer she comes up with is really only an answer that Amy Tan can come up with. It gave me chills. I'll be honest. It really gave me chills. Oh, and in it, you'll also hear my sad little story of how I auditioned for the movie Joy Luck Club in 1993. And spoiler alert, I didn't book it. So you'll hear that sad little story. But that's part 2. So anyway, enough of me. You came here to hear Amy. So I'll get out of the way and we'll get into the wonderful chat right after this. Today we are joined by Amy Tan. Amy Tan is a writer. Perhaps you've heard of some of her books. She also sings in a band called the Rock Bottom Remainders. She's also a Northern California bird watcher. Her latest book was a little bit of a departure from her Asian American narrative works. It's called The Backyard Bird Chronicles. Hello and welcome to the show, Amy Tan.
Hi, good to be here.
Oh, so happy to have you here. It's been a year, yeah? Almost exactly a year?
A year yesterday, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Still on the New York Times bestseller list. You edged out this guy, JD something. You edged him out.
Oh,
He's
really?
number 3 now.
Too bad. Yeah, that was a total surprise, this book.
Who would have guessed you could look out your window and write a bestseller, huh?
You could just have fun and feel guilty not writing your novel and saying, "Oh, just one more drawing, one more bird. Oh, look what that bird is doing." And then have that become very hard, disciplined work later, reflected in a book.
Yeah.
When it wasn't. It was total fun, so
it's fantastic. I like the choice, too. It kind of feels like a little bit of a field guide, the softback cover.
Yes, we chose that on purpose. Although some people said, I bought a hardback and I got this flimsy paperback. And I wanted to tell the person, no, that actually costs more than a hardback.
Okay.
You should be happy to have that. It's a special cover. But.
Well, and if you take off the dust jacket, you get to see this little cutie on the front of it.
Isn't that a nice touch? It's got my initials and it's got the bird. I should use my full initials from now on. Do you know what they are?
Oh, no, I don't.
You got to know my middle name.
I don't know your middle name. Is it?
My middle name is Ruth.
Oh, so it'd be Art.
A-R-T. Yes.
Yeah, you should. You calling in from Marin today?
Sausalito, yeah.
Sausalito, California. I used to live in Mill Valley for a couple years. Gorgeous up there.
They have parking here, too.
Yeah.
Are you in San Francisco?
No, well, currently I'm in Daly City. I work in San Francisco. I live in Daly City. But I loved my time in Mill Valley. When you get fog in San Francisco, you got to go across the bridge and you get just a little bit into Marin County and it's already sunny. It's so great.
That's right. It can be super foggy even in all of Marin County or all of Sausalito. But our particular area where we live is usually sunny. The fog will just disappear. And that's the microclimates of Sausalito that where you have such drastic differences just in a matter of 100 feet.
Yeah, no, I love that area up there. And one of my favorite places in the world is that Mill Valley Library. I know you've been there.
They are incredible. I was there just 2 weeks ago also to see somebody else talk there. And I hadn't noticed when I was presenting there, the architecture, the windows, the light that comes in, the trees that you could see. What a fantastic library.
Gorgeous. Hey, and we like to greet our guests in the Asian way. So Amy Tan, have you eaten yet?
Eating churla.
Oh, good.
Eating tribala.
Good.
But you know what I ate? Look. Rice checks.
A bowl of cereal, yeah.
My husband is making me a homemade soup, so I'll have that later.
Okay, so something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Fascinatingly enough, I saw that you listed out, I was reading your Opposite of Fate, your musings book, and you listed out all the cities in the Bay Area that you lived in, and you've circumvented this whole Bay Area all the way up to Santa Rosa, down to Palo Alto.
I know. It's like I'm a representative of a lot of the Bay Area, plus schools, a lot of the schools and colleges. So now I get to be, everybody claims me as the homegirl.
Yeah.
The homegirl who made good, or the local girl who made good, and the alum of all these schools, which of course means that I'm invited to be a commencement speaker and to donate to all of these places.
Because you have to now. You're attached to the school.
I know, because I went there.
That was your mom, huh? Like she if she stayed in any one place too long, she got a little uncomfortable.
No, my mother, she came from a fairly wealthy family in China. She was adopted into a wealthy family. And I think she always wanted to regain some of what she had in those days. And I think that's true with a lot of immigrants, that you work very hard and you'll work the night shift of everything. You work 7 days a week, but you want to show that you are progressing. So each house was climbing up the American ladder.
Oh,
And this new address may have been only 2 blocks away, but it was a better house.
okay.
Yeah, it was always to a progressively better house. And then she would nag my father to get a better job. So then he would get a better job and then we'd move again. That's why we moved all the time. By the time I graduated high school, I think I had gone to 12 schools or something.
Wow.
It was weird. Yeah. It
Yeah.
was. I think it was also one of the reasons I became a writer, because you're always the outsider when you're entering a new school, and then you leave the next year and you're entering a new school again.
Yeah, I think you said that kind of you wanted to be a fly on the wall for the first few months whenever you got into a new school. So you were just sitting there observing who the cool kids were, who were the bullies.
Yeah. Who were the cool kids? Who were the duds? Who were the teachers' favorites? And yeah, what do you have to do to do well in this school? And it changed, of course, as I get older. Your interests when you're, 7 are different from when you're 16.
Sure. Yeah. You think that's one of your superpowers, is the power of observation? Like this book for sure, looking at birds all day.
Yeah, I've always been that kind of a person who observes things very carefully, but it's not in the way most people would imagine how perhaps I would observe and remember things for a novel. For example, I have a problem with face memory.
Oh.
If I see you in a store later and you say, "Hey, it's Curtis," and I think, I don't think I've ever met this guy. And it's not because I don't think you're important. It's because, hey, the other day I didn't recognize Hillary Clinton. And I was sitting next to her, and she has had me to her house, so to speak, the White House, like 6 times. And we sat next to each other. We've had other moments when we've done parties together. We know each other. And I come into the house and I say, "Hi, it's a lunch with
You look familiar.
No, she said, "Oh, I'm so glad you could come." And I'm looking at her and I said, "Oh, okay. I know this person, I guess." And I just said, "Yeah, good to see you too." Very casual. And then I see that everybody else, there are like 5 other people listening so intently to what she's saying. And as if she has some kind of special insights about what's going on that we don't have, among ourselves. And then I realized there were these guys outside who were in black, and I thought they were singers who'd come to sing, because we were at Linda Ronstadt's house and she has chorus people come and sing. And so then I realized, those aren't singers. That's why they didn't. And I said, "Are you here to sing?" And only one person said, "Yeah, I am." And then, and then it's Secret Service. So I said that to her. I said, "Oh my God." I said, "You're not going to believe this." I said, "I thought those guys out there were going to sing for us, for Linda." And I said, and then Linda kindly says, "I have the same problem. I can't recognize faces either. Even those people that we know." This is something that happened to me with Lyme disease. It kind of dinged my brain in certain areas,
Man.
but
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so I won't have any hard feelings if you don't recognize me in Safeway.
No, that's right.
Okay. I think you said too that one of these houses that you went to had this lovely backyard creek, and that might have been the beginning of your love of nature. It's kind of a little bit of an escape, yeah?
It was a block away, or half a block away.
Okay.
So it wasn't our backyard. This was in Santa Rosa. It was at the Matanzas Creek, which in my memory is a huge creek, but it's probably pretty small. I'm not really sure. Yeah, I used to go there every day and play, and it was mostly about lizards and frogs and snakes. So it was not birds.
Yeah.
I was talking about this the other day with Keith Hansen. We're going to do something this weekend at the Point Reyes Bird Festival, and he's an expert birder, artist, super nice guy. And we talked about, when did you get started with birds? And he showed me a photo and was talking about it. And then he said, well, we should ask about you. And I said, oh, I got started with birds, seeing the movie The Birds, and then I was scared of birds.
Yeah, that's not too far from where you are now.
Yeah, no. And Santa Rosa, The Birds came out in 1963.
Uh-huh.
And I was living in Santa Rosa, and we thought those blackbirds were all from the movie, and
No.
they were scary. So we found, actually, because we're talking about this and we have a slideshow, we found a picture of a still from The Birds, and it shows kids running out of a school, and they're all screaming like in that famous Munch painting, where it's like that. And we take a picture of me from that same period when I'm 11. I look all funny with really crazy, horrible hair that was done by a trainee at beauty parlor school for $5. I have these stupid cat eye glasses. I look really terrible. And we shrunk it down, so I'm the same size as this screaming boy, put my face there, and I look kind of normal. And then Keith's wife put in a screaming face. So it goes from like that. So that's in our slide tomorrow. And I think everybody will get a big kick out of that.
Love it.
I did not get into birds, I think. In part, I was very, very nearsighted and I didn't wear my glasses. And so I wasn't looking up and looking at birds far away.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any birds that I would have noticed, closer up.
Because you've lived there for, how long have you lived in that house? Like 20
You
something?
mean here in Sausalito?
Yeah.
I've lived here. Well, I've lived in Sausalito since 2000. Well, this particular house, 2006. Well, there are two houses on this property. So I lived in the other one, and then we built the house that I live in now. So 2006.
So those birds have always been there.
Yeah.
To your recollection. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been here for 20 years, and it's I think we have more birds here now, in part because we landscaped for pollinators, and pollinators are attracted now to the yard. Plus, we have the oak trees, but the feeders definitely help to bring the birds to a smaller part of the yard. It's not the only food they get. They come here because we have trees with caterpillars and bugs, flying insects.
Yeah.
We have berries. We have acorns. So that's why the birds are here. Yeah. Sorry, I just saw a bird land on something.
This is how your work day goes, right? You're trying to do some work.
Yeah, I know. It's terrible. I had to close the curtains here. I had to not work where I used to work because I saw too many birds. And I don't know how I never looked at them. They are the most amazing creatures.
Yeah.
And to not have noticed them.
Yeah.
All those years. God.
So you started, I think you wrote, well, this is going to be a little ironic. You started in 2016. I thought it was going to be a pandemic hobby that got you started, but you started in 2016, due to some stressful things going on in the news.
Oh, really? Yeah, I can't remember what the stress was, but
we're in it again, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, it was, publicly I do say some of the things, the outcomes of that sea change, and it was racism toward Asians, which of course intensified with COVID, but it was there in 2016. This administration has a real thing against Asians. And, the tariffs, they're punitive, to our Chinatowns.
Right.
And Chinatowns are going to go out of business because of these tariffs.
Yeah.
And he doesn't care. So that kind of thing was just so disturbing to me. And the racism that felt violent and was violent at times. So I was in despair, and I needed to just do something that made me see the world again as a beautiful place, a place with other possibilities.
So you were, how did it start, with hummingbirds, or what were the first birds that you noticed outside your window?
I noticed crows, of course.
Oh,
They're
okay.
everywhere and they're big and they're easy to spot. And then this bluebird, which just landed, um, I called it a bluebird or a blue jay. It's actually a scrub jay. It's
Uh-huh.
California scrub jay. We don't have blue jays, they are back east.
Uh-huh.
And I saw a hummingbird, which is, of
Yeah.
course, the phenomenal little tiny minuscule helicopter going around the yard. How could you not notice that bird?
Yeah.
What I didn't notice were the other little, what they call little brown jobs, LBJs. And
Oh, okay.
they were just every now and then when I'd see them, I was told, take a look. They're not all one bird,
Uh-huh.
not all one kind of bird.
Uh-huh.
And indeed, they were many different kinds of birds.
Yeah.
So I've seen 70 different species in my yard.
Wow.
They don't all come at once, of course, and some of them are one-offs, but yeah.
That's amazing. And then so then you got a little interesting. You started to go to bird watching clubs, like out in the field a little bit more?
I would go birding with friends,
Okay.
and that's when you go to, well, there were 2 things. I would go on nature journal field trips because I
Uh,
was learning to draw, and the person who was teaching that would do classes once a month and once a month field trips. And I would go with a group of people. I had a pseudonym, Unmei Tan, which is Unmei is my Chinese name.
uh-huh.
So I could be just as, you know, inexperienced as anybody else. No one would pay attention to what I wrote or what I did. And that was true. I was just some Chinese woman, old Chinese woman who was in the class. and and then I could post whatever I did on the Nature Journal Club page, like everybody else, and you give encouragement to people and all this. And
Yeah.
my, I always thought my drawings were terrible, but I forced myself to post them because I needed to get over perfection syndrome.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that reminder again that it's the doing of this, it's the act of doing. It's what you get in the moment that is the most important and not the result of it compared to other things.
Yeah.
So I did that for a while. And it wasn't until later I was outed, like when the book came out and it's, yes, she's been here all along. Or somebody would say to me, I hear Amy Tan is here. You see anybody, like that. And I would just feel bad. Sometimes I would, well, yeah, I heard she's here too.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would say, well, yeah, I'm Amy Tan. Um, it was nice. It's nice not having expectations.
Right.
Um, being just somebody else. Nobody wants to necessarily be with you more than anybody else.
Yeah.
And that is so I'm so grateful for those moments now because when somebody wants to be with you, you wonder
Mm.
if they have higher expectations. Now, I can't swear, I can't say certain things. I have to be polite, I can't complain about anything. I have to be a super person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise they'll say bad things about me.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that Amy Tant, she's a bitch.
Cancel her. I'm never buying another
I
book
know,
from her.
I know. She is a bitch. The real Amy Tan is a real
Oh
person.
no. You heard it here first, people.
Yeah.
Hey, tell me about your mentor, Fiona. I think she must have been like 12 at the time when you first met her.
She just turned 13. Yeah. Well, I saw this girl at one of the field trips. We were on looking at sandhill cranes in a nature reserve. And she kept asking this guy questions. He was the leader, he's the teacher. And most everybody, they're an adult. They tend to be on the older range. Why is that duck, blah, 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 doing that? Or look at the stilt. And she just kept asking these questions. And I looked over and I saw her book was filled literally with question marks and words scribbled sideways, across, diagonally, at the top, crammed into the gutters with little messy drawings. And I thought, oh, this kid is ADHD trouble. She's this curious kid who wants to know why the sky is blue. So I thought, steer away, get away from her. And then later I came to understand nature journaling is about questions. Nature
Uh-huh.
journaling is about curiosity. And you have to ask questions one after the other. It's not the answers that are important, it's the questions that drive your investigation of what's in front of you.
Yeah.
And so, exactly what she was doing was what I needed to do. And I realized that after a while. And then I would stalk her. I would go follow her, and then I would look at what she was writing in her journal, like a kid cheating in math class on a test, Oh, algebra test, you know? And then we became friends, and I would ask her questions, or she'd say, "Have you
Yeah.
ever heard of yellowthroat before?" Well, that's a yellowthroat singing. Oh, and then she'd make some other remarks that are always very interesting. So she became my curiosity mentor.
Yeah.
Jack, John Muir Laws was my
Mhm.
mentor in all of nature journaling, learning to draw. But
Yeah.
definitely, Fiona's been part of my life ever since. And we
Yeah.
get together. We'll go on vacation together. We're going to go
Oh,
to
amazing.
Mexico together. We stay in touch. It was, on text messaging all, the last few days. So she's great. She's there.
What a dream. Did she ever figure out who you were before? Did you have to tell her at one point that you're kind of a big deal?
I never told her. I think maybe her mother knew. Her mother used to work with Poetry Foundation, and also used
Oh,
to
okay.
be with the community of writers. So I think she knew. I don't know if she told Fiona, or I don't. I actually don't know whether Beth knew my real name at the time. It could be. I should ask her that.
Yeah.
We talk every day, so I should find out what that is.
That's
But she was
interesting.
very circumspect,
Uh-huh.
and she wouldn't tell other people. And it wasn't until later that when we were doing auction items and doing things to promote stuff, and she asked if I would be willing to be unmasked, and I said, "Yeah, that's fine." Um,
Yeah. Now, I've interviewed some people, and there's this term. I know you know this term, but I'll interview someone and they'll say, "Oh, this person, so and so, is the Amy Tan of children's books, or so and so is the
Gag.
Amy Tan of." Yeah. So, are you comfortable being Amy Tan of Amy Tan? Like,
Oh, I think that, short changes whoever is being compared to me. I think it's
uh,
terrible being called a derivative of somebody else,
yeah,
because then they're comparing you to that other person
yeah,
and what you're doing, and you don't get to be the individual who has the
yeah,
unique accomplishments that you have.
yeah.
That word, like Amy Tan, the next Amy Tan, was stifling to a lot of people for a
Sure.
while
Yeah.
after I was published. Fortunately, for a short while, and then people started publishing more Asian American writers, more,
Right.
and not calling it Asian American literature or ethnic literature, but just truly American
Literature.
literature
Yeah.
that includes many different people. But yeah, there are some people who didn't publish saying, "Oh, we already have the Amy Tan
Yeah.
and a commodity." So I find it awkward. I
Mhm.
mostly though I find it really humiliating. I think it would be humiliating if I were called somebody like that would compare me to, you're like, unless it was really great. You're like
The Bruce Lee
Walt,
of
the Bruce Lee of birding or something. I don't know. No,
Yeah.
I think mostly it's not flattering to
No,
the other
yeah.
person. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think? That's my perspective.
No, I kind of assumed you would say that because it makes it
Yeah.
sound like there's only room for one, like
Exactly, exactly. And
yeah.
that's why there were people in the Asian community who were upset, usually younger men, because they felt their story, that story wasn't about them. They
Uh,
thought they didn't have mothers who spoke broken English, and they really resented it and called them stereotypes that were not
yeah.
them. And I had to explain to people that's because we need a lot more. One story cannot represent
Right.
billions of people and billions of circumstances in their
Yeah.
lives. And we should not think of literature as having to serve the function of being representational, of having to right the wrongs, of the social wrongs of the past, to provide good role models and all of that. And I think finally we have that where you have new Asian American writers being published constantly.
A
I can't
lot.
keep up.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't.
No.
I mean,
Same.
I don't know you, but before it used to be, yes, we have, and then you'd name one other person
Right.
besides Maxine Hunkingston, who helped get us all started, or
Right.
Flower Drum Song for the '60s and
Yeah.
or '50s, and then Maxine, me, and then there was a little bit of a gap, but then it started growing, and now it's just exploded.
Yeah.
So, and they're stars; they win big prizes.
We're getting all the
too.
prizes. Yeah.
We're getting all the prizes.
It's so
Isn't that
great.
great? They've
Yeah.
won prizes I've never won.
Yeah.
So hurrah for them. I'm
Hurrah.
so glad because it also takes the pressure off me to be considered the person
Yeah.
who's supposed to carry all all of the rights and wrongs of the
Right.
past,
Yeah,
on my
absolutely.
shoulders and fix them in a story.
Yeah, I mean, we just this week's episode we just interviewed Nancy Chuan in
Oh, she was in Flower Drum Song.
Song. Yeah, Susie Wong, 1960, and then so Flower Drum Song was quote unquote the first all Asian American cast, and then you got to wait 34 years until your movie comes out,
And then wait
another
again.
20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Flower Drum Song. And unfortunately, Nancy Chuan misinterpreted something in the book. I don't know whether she's mad at me or she's uncomfortable with me. But in the book, there's something that one of the characters said. It's like, oh, like Flower Drum Song or Susie Wong in that racist movie or something. I can't remember. But that's a character saying that. I wasn't, that's not my personal belief.
Okay.
That's the problem, is that people would think there's a character in there who says, she doesn't want to get her hair cut by a gay hairdresser because she might get AIDS. Well, I certainly don't believe that.
Right.
It's the character who says that. So then I don't know whether I had a chance to explain that to her, but I heard she was upset by that.
You want me to get you guys on a call together? We should.
Oh, yeah. Well, it would have been really nice to have had her in the movie. And I don't know why that didn't happen. But it would have been such a great, because we all, as a kid, I watched Flower Drum Song, and especially Nancy Chuan, feeling like, I wish I could look like that. I wish I could be like that, popular and everything. But yeah.
All right. Well, I think she's doing some book signings for her new book.
Oh, she has a book out.
Yeah, just yesterday. So go down to what's your favorite bookstore in Marin?
Corte Madera.
Oh, okay.
Book Passage.
Yeah. Go meet her. Go say, hey, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't feel that way. But no, so you're saying you're not a grand champion in chess? Is that
No, I can't play chess at all, but I've been asked to write for a chess magazine. Tell us about these special moves, the wind, the troops sweep in from the north through the Gobi Desert and wipe out the adversary. No. Yeah. It's all made up.
I mean, the thing is, there's a little bit of truth to some of the, your mom is in some of these books, and well, especially your Kitchen God's Wife was a lot about your mom.
There's two ways that you can look at this, whether somebody is in a book or not. One is that you are actually including moments from their lives that are true. And the other is that there's some part of those people, their character, their beliefs that are based on them. And so there are two different ways to look at it. My brother when he read the Joy Luck Club, he said, I know most of the stuff that's in here never happened to our family. And he said, but every single line from the mothers is mom. It sounds like her. So that is what the truth is. It's my mother. It's the humiliation she faced. Yeah. It's the worries she had. It's her resilience and how she talks about the ways you should look at things. It's her stubbornness. It's her prejudice. It's all of that. That is the truth of a novel. And people focus too much on the facts of things. Like, yes, she, this really did happen. That's what people think is truth. Yeah. And that's the least of it. Right. Yes, I had a piano recital that was disastrous. Um, so there are things that come from my
Sure.
childhood, but they
Sure.
didn't really come. And it was manipulated in a way to tell a story about a girl and the expectations of the mother and just resenting like hell the mother's expectations and taking pride in her daughter's accomplishments.
Yeah.
And then failing in public, failing later, her in so many different ways. That is the story. The facts could have things around it could have changed. The most
Yeah.
important thing is your sense of identity as a child that has been influenced very much by the expectations and desires and worries of the parent.
Hmm. Now, maybe I'm reading too much, but when I'm reading the Backyard Bird Chronicles, these are these delicate creatures that, intentionally so, they have to be fragile because they have to be light enough to fly. And so they're so tiny and fragile. I couldn't help but feel some, the empathy of the underdog and this, a lot of the things that kind of run through your other books. I felt when you were describing these bird lives. Did it cross your mind at all, or were you just purely observing as a naturalist?
No, my whole purpose was to be the bird.
Uh,
That is a concept that was given to me by Jack Laws, that when you're drawing the bird, when you're curious and you're doing all this, he said it in a way that it had to do with noticing things about the bird that you were drawing so you get the feel of the bird. But I took it further as a fiction writer, and that I wanted to be the bird. So I'm the bird sitting out there. I'm
uh,
aware of the weather. I'm aware of the food in front of me. I'm aware of all the dangers, including this person observing the bird, me,
yeah,
um, and the other birds around. So I am doing my best to be the bird. So absolutely empathy. And when things happen that
yeah.
are not great, uh, total compassion.
Mm,
Um, I am not the bird, obviously, and I will never have their life. I won't completely understand what they are going through. If I were to sum up the major thing that I learned about birds, just the one major thing that's connected that is about birds and governs almost all of their behavior, it's about survival from day to
uh,
day.
yeah,
And yeah, so I'm not looking at pretty bird. Oh, look, they're fighting. How cute. I'm looking at it and say, okay, this is this bird. This is what it needs. It's feeding nestlings. It needs this bird for this. I mean, this food. Um,
yeah,
I want to know those situations in the context of that, because to help me take on the garb of this bird, it'd be like taking on the garb of and mental mindset of a character in a book.
yeah,
Same thing. You have to write a book with sympathy, with compassion for the characters. If you write about people you don't like, if you write about revenge, you're not going to write a very deep book. You're going to write a book that is very shallow and is only for the intents and purposes of getting revenge. And there are a lot of people who do that.
hmm,
Um, but that is, to me, it's so unfulfilling. Why would you spend that much energy and time doing that? So to do things with compassion, with 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 a look at truth, even though you don't always say nice things about everything and everybody, that you still have sympathy, you still have compassion for other lives. That's what imagination is. As a matter
right,
of fact, I think compassion is imagination.
yeah,
You are
huh,
the other person in their shoes, in their family, in the family of their circumstances, where they came from, and the travails that they're facing today. You are writing a story about that, and that is your history. So you
huh,
have to be totally there, totally
yeah,
given to that you are somebody else now.
yeah, yeah. You know, I'm sure you've heard these stories too that there are certain cultures that say hummingbirds and cardinals, especially, are spirits of
Yeah.
others. Do you
Yeah.
ever think spiritually about these birds?
I have. I could say right now, no, that's wishful thinking. But
Uh-huh.
when somebody does die who I really
Uh-huh.
care for, I want to believe that. And
Right.
so my attitude about that is, um, who knows? And that grief And the appearance of a rare bird, a beautiful rare bird, is enough for hope. And what is wrong with hope?
Yeah.
There's nothing foolish about it, unless you're, putting money down on that belief. But really,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
really the idea that you get to have a proper goodbye if you weren't able to see that person before
Mhm.
they died. It's a way of finding peace with that and knowing the other person's at peace. So I have that in my book. I had an
Yeah.
incident where a very dear friend of mine of 50 years,
Mhm.
I'd known him for actually over 50 years. He died, and then his husband, who I also knew for 45 years, he died. But after my friend died, I had 3 animals show up. 2 of them birds, rarely seen in the
Mm.
yard. And I
Hmm.
thought, wow, they have to be different for you to notice.
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
had cardinals in your
Right,
yard, which we
right.
don't have in California, a cardinal, if I saw a cardinal,
Yeah,
I'd say, definitely
that's a
that's
ghost.
someone I know because there are no cardinals in California.
Right.
But if you see an unusual bird, you pay attention and they say, hey, so and so just died. Um, that
Mhm.
naturally comes to mind because you're thinking of that anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
So I had 3 different creatures come in that were not normally seen in my yard: a purple finch, an American robin, which is the common bird, the American robin, but not in my yard, and then a chipmunk. And I could hear my friend, who was an outrageous personality and who used to dress up as me for Halloween parties. And I could hear him say, who was an atheist because he was, a clinical psychologist. And he said, how many times do I have to get an animal drag before you believe it's me? You know? So that was
Uh,
my little,
yeah.
yeah, I
You know
can
what?
believe that it's,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I'm open to it too.
There's a study actually, because this belief is in all cultures. I
Mhm.
think it's in all cultures, many, many, many cultures at least. And it's called abimancy. So there's a study, scientists actually study this cultural phenomena of birds representing being the manifestation of somebody who's died.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I've heard it from different cultures. Yeah, yeah, I think
Yeah,
you're right. It's all
yeah.
over. In your book, you said you've never seen a hummingbird's nest. And so I went to my mom's house just totally by accident. And guess what I saw?
Oh,
You see it?
oh yes, perfect with the lichen around it too, the
It's got to be
spider
used
webs
more
on
than
it.
1 year. And
Yeah,
there
yeah.
he is.
Wow. I, there are hummingbirds that are nesting in the yard. There are other birds that are nesting right now. I have never deliberately gone to find the nests because I
Yeah,
don't want to disturb them.
right.
And it's also because if I were to signal where the nest is, then other creatures would know, and that could
Sure.
lead to
Yeah,
the demise. But I would
yeah.
love to see one. I would love to look out my bathroom window where the hummingbirds sit before they go to the feeders and find that they've also built a nest there. But
Hmm.
no.
Well, you did say, and I'm going to try to tie this into your other writing as well. You did say that you had a pair of owls living in your yard. Like one of the last lines of your book was you had a pair of owls living in your yard. And I forget the exact line, but you said you consider yourself very, very lucky. And, whenever Emmy Tan says the word luck, your ears are going to perk up a little bit. Because, if you look, like I'm sure if you asked your 16-year-old self if you were lucky, you would absolutely say you're the most unlucky person.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
since
Exactly.
then, you've had this remarkable life. Have has the term joy luck changed in your lifetime? Has it as it's been 35 years since the book.
Yeah. Well, it certainly changed my life. And there's no denying that I consider it phenomenal luck. And, I know of amazing writers and you wonder, why didn't they get this break? So
Hmm.
it doesn't have necessarily things to do with, I deserved it.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of luck, timing, whatever it is. And of course, it came with a lot of things that were joyful, but it was also very, very stressful.
Hmm.
And it it was a complete challenge to revamp myself and how I thought of myself. And I had to tap down these notions that people were putting on me that felt very dangerous. When people put you on a pedestal or
Yeah.
make you an icon, then you're not a real person.
Right.
And they treat you not like a real person. They treat you with some kind of consideration that makes you feel not human, not real. Or they feel that they need to take you down a peg to make sure that you are not as good as you think you are, kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
So it's very difficult to deal with. And I've become used to it over time. All of the unpleasantness of being more well known has settled into something where I can isolate off myself, exposure to that, and
Yeah.
just be who I am and not have
Right.
to think about that. Um, I really prefer that people ask me what I think about a bird or about a movie on
Uh-huh.
TV than asking me opinions about my books or
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
because that makes me different. I'm no longer everybody else. I'm
Right.
this person people want to pay attention to. And I could be very boring, but they're still going to pay attention to me. And they're going to tell people, oh, she was talking, she had spinach between her teeth. Or she really ate a lot. You think she's thin, but God, she eats like a pig. Yeah, that kind of thing, where
Yeah.
people take interest in things that are not really that interesting. Um, so the lucky thing, though, here's what I mean by luck. And I think when we define things, I'm constantly trying to examine what we mean by certain words, what I mean by what I have talked about in the past, to see if this has changed. Just like house values, real estate, what you
Yeah.
paid for it 60 years ago is not what it's worth today, but maybe it's a tear down. But so, for example, what I mean by luck, the definition of luck differs. It's not that luck, when I say I'm lucky because the owls are there, it's not simply that I'm lucky that the owls chose that place to roost. And you could go into biological reasons why they actually chose that particular place. I'm lucky because when I spot them each day, I feel lucky that I saw them, and that affects how I feel the rest of the day. That many of us can find things that we feel lucky about. And what I'm trying to get across to people these days, I can't tell people how they should deal with what is happening now and just
Right.
have this commonality with anger. I want a commonality with feeling hope and lucky and being grateful for being in the world. So one of the things I think is you don't have to wait for the next bad thing to happen that leaves you in despair and feeling hopeless. They said, wait for one good thing to happen. And I said, you can easily do that, waiting for one bird to show up.
Yeah.
When you see the bird, my God, this magical creature who descended from dinosaurs, who flies, who sings amazing songs, who may have traveled thousands of miles, who guides itself by magnetic fields and stars and sun. This creature is in front of you. Aren't you lucky? Aren't you lucky? And that makes you feel lucky for the rest of the day, that there are things in the world that are still good and you can wait for them. Your mind, God, I sound like a how-to author.
No, you're
I'm
great.
not.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that if you wait, I'm just saying this because this is what happened to me. I was in such despair. I couldn't do anything. If you wait only for the next bad thing to happen, your mind, your brain actually locks into that as a pattern. And all you're doing is waiting and then confirming to yourself, yes, see, it happened.
Yeah.
And to be able to move ahead and find enjoyment again in your life and purpose, and to have resilience to pick up the pieces later, you need to keep your mind open to the good things still.
I love that. Yeah. No, one good thing. Yeah, just wait for one good thing.
One good thing. Expect it. Wait for it. Be patient. Hope for it. Hope fulfilled. You saw it. It's there. It's beautiful. It's miraculous. Yeah.
All right. I think we're going to stop there for part 1. Are you enjoying it so far? Isn't she great? I mean, such a good storyteller, whether she's talking about birds, her mother, herself, the movie. I mean, so much good stuff in there. So anyway, get ready for part 2, though. Part 2 is, it's going to hit you too. So part 2 will be in a week or maybe at the end of this week. We'll see. Probably a week. We'll see. I'm getting kind of busy. I got a lot of stuff going on right now. But we'll do part 2 before you know it. And so come back and hear that. Thank you so much for listening. You can follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Infatuasian Podcasts. Drop us a line at infatuasianpodcast@gmail.com. You know where to write to us. I'll put all these details in the show notes. Go get a copy of the Backyard Bird Chronicles. And so I think that's going to do it. So on behalf of Amy Tan and myself, I hope that you're all happy, healthy, and safe out there. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.